Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. So here's the odd thing. Remember when I said last week that the charts tend to become a little bit more unstable when there's a big change at the very top as the old hit tumbles away and plenty of other songs jockey for its position? Well, that's not really happening. And from what I dug up this week, it lends all the more evidence to the fact that if See You Again hadn't shown up, Uptown Funk would have broken One Sweet Day's record, or at least would have gotten a lot closer to it. As it was this week, it was all about what song was going to manage to make that big push for the top, and the push didn't happen yet. Meanwhile, a bunch of songs fell off the charts because pretty much of longevity. They dropped to the recurring list and were mostly replaced by, oh god, you'll see, it was a bad week. But of course, let's start with our top 10. Unsurprisingly, See You Again by Wiz Khalifa featuring Charlie Puth held on tightly to the #1 slot, with the expected sales drops compensated for by massive airplay gains, and still topping the streaming and YouTube charts. But the surprise is that Uptown Funk by Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars stayed at #2, because it didn't top sales by a considerable margin. The strongest streaming was on YouTube, and it still lost airplay this week. But not at the rate it did last week. Now this will become important in a minute, but rising a few slots to #3 was Trap Queen by Fetty Wap, with solid sales, still a ton of streaming presence, and slowing but respectable radio gains. Although, like with Uptown Funk, it's less that it was strong and more about the competition. Similar category, Earned It by The Weeknd, which might have taken the top in airplay with some good streaming, but the sales were nothing all that special, only losing to Trap Queen thanks to that song's better streaming and sales. But both are where they are now because Sugar by Maroon 5 had a bad week. It dropped faster in airplay than Uptown Funk, which I did not expect. Only Tide earned it in sales. It only rose on YouTube because people are more tired of Taylor Swift than Maroon 5 at this point, and they had to get sick of Blank Space eventually. Next up, Love Me Like You Do by Ellie Goulding at #6. And really, given its rough sales, airplay peak, and weak streaming stats, I'm surprised it stuck along as long as it has. It certainly won't stand up much longer against Shut Up and Dance by Walk the Moon, which rose another slot to #7 thanks to very strong sales, consistent gains in airplay, and even in streaming. But again, it doesn't have YouTube, so the question of how high it'll get remains up to debate, even though I'd love to see it crack the top 5. It took the place of Ed Sheeran's Thinking Out Loud falling to #8, which just had a terrible week in pretty much everything but YouTube, especially in sales. Beneath that, GDFR by Flo Rida, Sage Gemini, and Lucas at #9. And again, this song looks iffy to me. I mean, sales were decent, but airplay and streaming all over the place this week, and the song's wavering fortunes have been kind of weird to me. Finally, we've got ourselves a new top 10 entry, the Jason Derulo track, Want to Want Me. And you know what, say you will about his hits last year, at least they had personality. This does not. Going for modern lightweight synth pop and Jason Derulo desperately trying to pull off an auto-tuned Prince-like falsetto and failing painfully. In other words, even despite some good sales and some good streaming and modest airplay gains, I don't see this lasting on the charts, and frankly, I'd be happy if it was gone anyways. And speaking of tracks not lasting, let's talk about our dropouts and our losers. This week we had a couple of major dropouts, most of which I'm kind of happy to see gone. I mean, losing Jealous by Nick Jonas and the atrocious Only by Nicki Minaj, Chris Brown, Drake, and Lil Wayne, that's only a good thing. I'm not exactly displeased to see Stay With Me by Sam Smith exit the charts either. It wasn't a bad song, but it's been around since 2014, in other words, a long time. Beyond that, we also lost Prayer and Sea by Lilywood and the Prick, remixed by Robin Schultz, and Lonely Eyes by Chris Young. But in both cases, they were on the wane anyways, as I said in previous episodes. Not exactly surprising to see him leave. What was surprising and disappointing was the loss of Bills by Lunch Money Lewis, which I view as a result of poor marketing and management, as viral success can only last you so long until you start making a more aggressive push to radio and streaming, and that didn't happen. Beyond that, we didn't exactly have many losers this week. I mean, I Really Like You by Carly Rae Jepsen's brief burst of virality is pretty much spent as it drops to 65. The Posse cut Ride Out drops to 97 because with the exception of See You Again, Furious 7 hype is fading. And Trouble by Iggy Azalea and Jennifer Hudson is proving that just about everybody at this point is tired of Iggy Azalea, dropping to 98. Beyond that, Outside by Calvin Harris and Ellie Goulding fell to 62, but given how erratic that chart run has been, I have no idea where it's going to wind up ending up next. And on the notes of shifts that seem erratic or make no goddamn sense, let's talk about our gains this week. I made sure we got the few boosts that everybody can predict. American Oxygen by Rihanna going up to 78, honestly expected it to go higher. Be Real by Kid Ink and DJ Loaf rising to 85, Bright by Echosmith continuing its climb to 60, and Sangria by Blake Shelton getting a sizable boost to 64. But there were a few surprises. I mean, Love Me Like You Mean It by Kelsey Ballerini, for instance, getting a boost to 82. I mean, maybe pop country's on the upswing, but considering Lucy Hale already did this sort of material a fair bit better, I don't know why we're giving this a lot of airtime now. Then we got DJ Snake and Aluna George getting a solid boost for You Know You Like It, which is rising still, but I didn't expect it would rise this much, because I suspect it'll now be the deep house inspired crossover that the mainstream will get as it goes up to 39. But we need to talk about Nasty Freestyle by T-Wayne surging up to 17. Okay, in a world where a badly made, no budget, dime a dozen on YouTube freestyle breaks the top 20, and Lunch Money Lewis delivering one of the best hooks and instrumentals of the year is forced off the charts, something is wrong, America. You need to fix this. Now, thankfully, we do have something from our one returning entry that does make me feel a little bit better.
And I ain't never did this before, no. 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 I ain't never did this before, no. And I ain't never did this before, no. And I ain't never did this. I wrote back and said,
you know, it's kind of funny how little of 2014 Forstell's Drive has really stuck with me over the past 4 months or so since I covered it. And you know what? It wasn't a bad album either. Not a great one, but it was certainly passable, above average. And thanks to the video, J.Cole managed to bring probably my favorite track on that album to the charts with Wet Dreams, with the beat and the flow being so damn good that I don't even mind the pitch-shifted elements peppering that song about this guy's first time. An intensely personal story about losing virginity with enough details to make it pretty damn relatable. It does connect here. Damn great song. Happy to see this back on the charts. We need J. Cole here. So now on to things that are a little bit less great, and that's stating it lightly. We've got our new entries, starting with number 100, Iris by Sawyer Fredericks. Oh yay, it's my least favorite contestant from The Voice, ruining one of my favorite Goo Goo Dolls songs that I really liked in high school. Keep in mind, I was never a huge Goo Goo Dolls fan. I mean, they had their place in adult alternative rock. They were always kind of hit and miss for me, a little bit too slick and polished for the 90s, and looking back on Iris, it's not exactly a great song from a writing standpoint. But let's be clear here. John Resnick had raw pipes and presence, and Sawyer Fredericks just doesn't. Sure, making it the live cut doesn't help, but that trembling warble was nothing close to the raw howl that Resnick had. Come with that, the emphasizing the strings, it's not a bad idea in the mix, but crushing the electric guitar to the back is not a good option when you bump the key of the strings to such a high squeal they have no presence and they sound terrible. As of yet, Fredericks has not yet gotten eliminated from The Voice, but dear God, I hope it's coming. If only so I don't have to hear him ruin more great songs that I like anymore. Next. Number 99, I Don't Get Tired, hashtag I Don't Get Tired, by Kevin Gates featuring August Alsina.
I wanna pull up, head spin, get fly. I got 6 jobs, I don't get tired. I don't get tired. I don't get tired.
So okay, every year a lot of music critics get asked about the XXL freshman list, a list of up-and-coming hip-hop artists that XXL thinks are going to be hot stuff in the upcoming years thanks to underground buzz, hot verses, or great guest spots. Now for music critics, it's functionally pointless. Chances are, since I regularly see not just the albums, but the Hot 100 on a regular basis, unless there's a mixtape that's straight fire that pretty much comes out of nowhere, I can easily call the majority of this list. Also keep in mind, it's a list of who's hot, not a list of real quality. In any case, Southern MC Kevin Gates has actually been around since the mid to late 2000s, dropping mixtapes since 2007. But it's only in the past year, thanks to digital sales, that he's developed a real big following, with my most recent familiarity with him coming when I reviewed the Game's last record, Blood Moon Year of the Wolf last year, where Kevin Gates was featured with Jeezy on one of the better songs on the album, and actually dropped a pretty good verse. And as I said, he was on XXL's freshman list for 2014. In any case, this was a track from his second Luca Brasi mixtape, and honestly, pretty good. Of course, he bites the Migos flow for his chorus, and I can't say I like the synth line, like, at all, but the more melodic delivery from August Alsina isn't bad in a Chris Brown sort of mold. As for Kevin Gates' bars about not getting tired in his hustle, he certainly brings some impressive energy to his relentless crescendos and his verses and his flow, about fighting his way out of the hood, about to break in, without unnecessary gloating, which I did like. Overall, yeah, I'll take a few more songs from Kevin Gates. Although I will say this, a man doing 6 jobs and not getting tired either isn't working hard, has very easy jobs, or is going to drop dead of exhaustion soon, so he better be careful here. Number 96, Flex, Ooh 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 by Rich Homie Quan.
$50,000 on your bill, wanna fuck me, gotta scream it like ooh, 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 ooh. Cause I got a check, nigga wanna flip, I ain't got a flip, but I got it, ooh, 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 ooh. Sometimes you screaming like, ooh, ooh, ooh.
I'm starting to think that Rich Homie Quan got a career kind of like Jeremiah did. Nobody cared enough to say no to him, so he just kept churning out hits and ended up on the charts thanks to inertia. So let's rectify that for a second. No! In a change of pace, let's actually do a comparison between this track and the one that we just heard from Kevin Gates. Now, from an instrumentation perspective, I actually like the bass-heavy beat and deep low synth more than the synth line and I don't get tired, hashtag I don't get tired, but the difference comes down to the MCs. Namely, Kevin Gates can enunciate his words. He raps quickly, but you can understand what he's saying. Rich Homie Quan seems to belong to the Young Thug school thought, that if you slur your words enough, people will think you're deep instead of absolutely incompetent. More importantly is the difference in content. Kevin Gates raps about working hard to get to the top. Anyone can relate to that. Whereas Rich Homie Quan raps about giving your girl ecstasy to have sex with her and brand names, while presenting zero class, sophistication, or wordplay that hasn't been done to death. Keep on flexing, Rich Homie Quan. Please do. Or not, because you might want to hold on to that cash when you're irrelevant in 2 years. Number 95, Cheerleader by OMI.
Cheerleader, she is always right there when I need her. Oh, I think that I found myself a cheerleader. She is always right there when I need her.
Well, it's about time the rest of you guys got this. We've been hearing this song for over a month and it's nearly cracking the top 10 in Canada. Cause, like always, repeat after me, the Canadian charts are always better. Believe it or not, this song has been around since 2012 by Jamaican reggae and hip-hop artist OMI. But a remix last year sent it to #1 all across Europe, and it's only now starting to penetrate the Hot 100. As it is, it's the instrumentation that's what makes this tune pretty good. Pretty understated pianos to support that solitary trumpet line, and gentle island percussion. Automatically put me in the mind just to go to the roof of my building, just sit in the sun and relax. Great for summer. Sadly, OMI himself is pretty unremarkable and uninteresting, with the auto-tune trying to add personality to his voice and not exactly succeeding. And the lyrics themselves confining this girl that he loves to the position of cheerleader. I mean, sure, we can appreciate that other girls are tempting and you're choosing to stick with her regardless, but calling her a cheerleader just feels a little bit marginalizing to me. Only keeping her around is somebody to make you feel better about yourself, and that's kind of sad. As I said, the Canadian charts are always better, but sometimes they're not better by that much. Number 84, Make It Rain by Koryn Hawthorne. I swear, I've covered this song 3 or 4 times already on Billboard Breakdown. Hell, one's from The Voice, too. Well, this particular cover is from Koryn Hawthorne, and honestly, it might be my least favorite version of the song that I've heard thus yet. I mean, I get that blues songs like this are kind of popular right now on The Voice, but Koryn's smoky alto doesn't quite have the same visceral fire that Ed Sheeran or Matt MacArthur brought. Mostly because her voice is just a more natural fit for rock, or maybe just something a little bit smoother than this. She's not exactly a howling belter, and trying to play one, just not the best fit for her, that's all. Not a bad song, but I've heard better. Number 83, Nasty by Bandit Gang Marco featuring Dro. You want to know something funny? Back in the mid-2000s during the crunk boom, people jumped on Southern flows because they were massively popular and successful, cracking the top 10 regularly, if not higher. But everybody hopping on Migos' super staccato flow, you know they haven't even cracked the top 40, right? Just because it's popular on Vine doesn't mean it's translating to actual real-time chart success. And nowhere is this more proven than Nasty by Bandit Gang Marco, the remix featuring Dro. Fun fact, there's also a remix that featured Kevin Gates and Young Thug from 2014. So we could have had that instead of this if we wanted it. Either way, I have no idea why you'd want either, because this song is goddamn terrible. A gutless piano line, terrible synth, underweight trap hi-hat, and leaden bass, all paired with a grimy Ray Shrimmer reject, Bandit Gang Marco, who's even less interesting than Ray Shrimmer is. Dro tries to get on the track with a similar flow, delivers a not bad verse about violence, gangs, and bad bitches for that sort of thing if you like it, almost saved the song, but it's still bad. I'm just gonna coin a term for this sort of stuff that's because it keeps popping up. In the vein of new metal acts that dominated near the turn of the millennium, we're gonna call this new crunk. Make it happen, folks. We need something that gives a label to this dreck that it just so heartily deserves. Number 77, Nothing Without Love by Nate Ruess.
What's wrong? But I'm nothing without love.
I should be less surprised to see a song by Nate Ruess here than I am. Like it or not, he's been a member of the Fun with the most mainstream success on his own. Yes, I know, Jack Antonoff and Bleachers is all amounts of awesome, I really like the guy, but it barely cracked the charts, whereas Nate Ruess has high charting credits with Pink and Eminem. So I guess it shouldn't exactly be surprising he's trying to make it with a solo release for his debut album titled Grand Romantic. And with his lead-off single, well, where Jack Antonoff pulled from John Hughes soundtracks, Nate Ruess goes for the bombastic, heavily inspired love songs of Freddie Mercury and Queen in the 80s. And look, Nate Ruess is a fantastic singer who's got a ton of presence, but people tend to forget that Queen was just more than Freddie Mercury. And I listened to this song thinking that, man, I wish that Brian May would step up to deliver a kick-ass guitar solo to crank this song up to 11 and make it really awesome. And really, the lyrics are fine enough, but they aren't up to the level of detail that Jack Antonoff brought to the table with his project, or what Nate Ruess normally delivers with Fun. Now look, I'll take Queen light over the majority of what I got this week. It was bad, but if you give me I Want to Get Better, or Wild Heart, or Reckless Love, or Roller Coaster instead, or really anything off of Strange Desire, I'd take them over this song. Just saying. And finally, number 40, Hallelujah by Panic at the Disco.
Praise with your body, stand up, sing hallelujah. And if you can't stop shaking, lean back, let it move right through you. And say your prayers, say your prayers, say your prayers.
You know, at this point, Panic at the Disco was barely a band, with half the old lineup quitting after Pretty Odd and their drummer Spencer Smith leaving just a few weeks ago. In other words, it's become a Brendan Urie solo project under the Panic at the Disco name. So in the same way that Passion Pit is really just Michael Angelicos with touring members at this point. And yet we've got a new single from an upcoming 5th album. And sadly, I hate to say this, but I'm a little bit underwhelmed by it. Now don't get me wrong, the retro gospel touches, they were nice, and Urie's lyrics were intriguing, focusing more on the visceral emotions of now having more power than satisfaction or contentment, having more in the actual struggle than actually getting there to the top. Which, yeah, I can buy into that. But my issue here is in the production instrumentation. This goes for this wall of sound, but between the blast of percussion, drums, claps, fragments of keys, electric guitars, and full brass, there's basically one melodic loop that repeats throughout the entire song, and it's a complete cluttered mess, especially on the chorus. This was the direction that I was worried that Panic at the Disco were moving in after their last record, but it's simply just more overwrought than it can support, especially considering the gospel framework feels severely lacking in the lower end of the mix of the song, without more of a real bass line or organ. Just saying, Panic at the Disco, they've done a lot better than this. So yeah, this was this week, and wow, most of it sucked. To the point where I'm actually having a hard time picking a best song of the week. Okay, I'm gonna give it to Nate Ruess for Nothing Without Love, and the honorable mention going to J.Cole's Wet Dreams of the worst. Man, it's hard. I'm giving it to Flex Ooh 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 by Rich Homie Quan, if only to send a message that this guy should not have a career, let alone another hit. And dishonorable mentions to both Nasty by Bandit Gang Marco and Dro for another forgettably bad new crunk hit, and Iris by Sawyer Fredericks for completely failing to handle another good song and ruining something from my childhood. Dear God, let's get better next week. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.